The topic we'll be studying today is state, and this is one of the concepts or one of the terms that we frequently use in political science. So let's see what a state is. State forms the basic architecture of political authority on earth. We all know that there's a kind of political authority when we live in a group and when we are specifically studying political science, so we are discussing some sort of a political authority. So what state is? State provides the basic architecture for that political authority, and that is the most popular form on governing masses on earth. What state means the organization that runs a country. So in simpler terms, what we say is that whatever organization is handling the affairs of its country is a state. States are organizations that define the rules under which the individuals and all other organizations, businesses, firms, religious institutions, universities, political parties, and so on can act on their territory. So, what the state is comprised of organizations, different organizations that are working together to define the rules for individuals and for organizations. These organizations can be of different kind of business. They could be of business firms, they could be religious institutions, universities as educational institutions, political parties for your political affairs or whatever. So they organize those laws and rules according to which these groups and organizations will act on their territory. From where the term state originated. So the Greeks used the word for its polis, which means a politically organized city community or a city state. As we have already seen that the word state, we are familiar with the word city state, that they are small states, the city states that were not too big or they were not too small, but they had a reasonable of proportion of everything. So they were like kind of self-sufficient for themselves. The Romans also used another term, namely status republicae, and there was another word from Romans that later was evolved for the French, calling it state, and in English again the state, and German stat, and so on. It has different words in different languages. So let's see what's the definition of state by different scholars, so we could just have an idea of what a state, how the concept of state has evolved over time, and what constitutes a state. For as to present with the ancient view or of state, Aristotle defined the state as a community of families and villages having for its end a perfect self-sufficing life, by which we mean a happy and honorable life. A community of families. There is not an individual, there is not a single community, there is a plural. So, a community of families and villages having for its end a perfect and self-sufficing life. That for itself, that community of families, the group, whatever communities it is hosting or the villages it has, they had for themselves a perfect life and they are self-sufficing. They do not depend on any external person to help them out, on any external organization or whatever to manage their affairs. They're self-sufficing. They can handle it themselves. By which we mean a happy and honorable life, that we get to know that this will be an happy and honorable life. They are not dependent on anyone. A modern jurist, Holland defines state as a numerous assemblage of human beings. So now there's kind of a legal uh, touch to the what we will be defining it by the law. So a jurist is saying it is the assemblage of people, of human beings. It could be like different people from different stratas, from different classes, from different backgrounds, and they'll be having a group, a numerous assemblage, a big assemblage, generally occupying a certain territory. They'll be having some territory on which they live on, amongst whom the will of majority or of an ascertainable class or person is by the strength of of such a majority or class made to prevail against any of their number who oppose it. So there must be a majority within the community, you can say, or they could be such a majority that they can oppose, they can resist the opposition from outside. So there is again kind of a concept of like sovereignty here. So the three things to remember for this definition is the assemblage of human beings. There is different groups that are combined to form a population here. Generally occupying a certain territory, they must be having a certain territory for themselves to live, amongst whom the will of majority is important. When there is a community, there is a majority population that are for their religious beliefs, their political beliefs, or whatever. Maybe it's about a class. There are different forms of majority, na? So that a certain will class have a strength or majority made to prevail against any other opposition and any other number who comes in their opposition. Now we will be seeing what the international law has the point of view regarding a state. When international law considers state, Hall says the mark of an independent state are that community constituting it is permanent, permanently established for political end. Political end is kind of they have some form of like political power. They have some foreign affairs to deal with other states. They have things to regulate within their community and how they'll be trading, the concept of import, export, and everything that it's all constitution and for the political end. Now. So the community constituting it is permanently established for the political end, and here it defines political ends as it possesses a defined territory पे उसकी jurisdiction हो उसकी territory पे, and it is independent of any external control. The independence from an external control indicates sovereignty. So yes, there are three things to remember here. Again, a community that is permanent. Here the word permanent is important because if that community isn't residing there permanently on that territory and they are not independent, they are not considered a state according to international law perspective. So they have a territory and they have sovereignty. Sovereignty, in, as defined in it, is independent of any external control. No one from the outside world will direct them how to live or what their laws must be or how to act or whatever. President Woodrow Wilson is a very important figure. He was the president of the United States. He has defined state in more simpler or easier words, whatever you say. A people are a people organized for law within a definite territory. So again, there is territory, and there are people who are organized within that definite territory according to the law. So here, law is important. Rules are important. They'll be living their life according to some law. Okay. Lasky defines state as a territorial society divided into government and subject claiming within its allotted physical area supremacy over all other institutions. So here, a territorial society, a society that has a territory and that is divided into government and subjects claiming it will be having a hierarchy where there'll be distribution of kind of powers, distribution of authorities within its allocated physical area, that state will be governing the area it is allocated, and supremacy over all other institutions. Supremacy over all other institutions again indicates the concept of sovereignty. They are independent of any external control. There will be a form of government or a kind of governance that will be superior to other forms of government. Like when there is a hierarchy, in the government, the most supreme or the supreme institutions will or its jurisdiction will prevail. So there is a kind of sovereignty externally, and there is some sovereignty internally in your state. So Lasky has defined a territorial society divided into government and subject claiming. Subject claiming can here be taken as the population within its allocated physical area. It defines the territory, physical area they are living on, the land they have, supremacy over all other institutions. The government will be having supremacy on all the small institutions that will be a part of it. Garner says the state as a concept of political science and public law is a community of persons, again a group of persons, more or less numerous. Their strength is not defined. They could be like a very large group or kind of a small group, permanently occupying a definite portion of territory. They must be having a permanent territory on which they live on, a definite portion of territory, a considerable land for themselves, independent of external control. That is, they are sovereign. They do not depend on anyone. No one from the outside comes to dictate them how to handle your affairs and whatever, and possessing an organized government to which the great body of inhabitants render habitual obedience. So here you must be having a government, an organized government to which a great body of inhabitants render mutual obedience, that you agree to follow the rules, the laws made by that government. The majority population of its inhabitants are ready to be obedient to their government. Habitual obedience, like you do it as a habit. You agree to be to adopt it as part of your daily life. Now there is kind of a different perspective when we study the Marxist definition. So Marxism, as we study and we will be studying in our political science courses, is a socio-economic theory. So it will be defining state in socio-economic terms. What a socio-economic thing is, that this society and economics go hand in hand to describe a thing. Okay? So it explains the state in socio-economic terms, that it explains the state as a society that is divided or that has different economic classes and they have a relationship. So such a society is defined here when we define the state from Marxist perspective. So Karl Marx, the founder of scientific socialism and communism, holds that state is political organization of ruling class. Remember the word ruling class, which uses its power for purpose of suppressing the resistance of its class enemy. So yes, when we study the Marxism, there are mostly two classes, like clearly defining for this uh, to define this to make clear this definition. There are two classes, as we have already studied. There are two. Um, One is the majority, or that has the most rule for themselves, the most power for themselves, and the one is a weak class that in terms of economically weak, financially weak when we study the Marxism. So there'll be a ruling class and they have the power, and you will use their power to suppress their class enemy. Who will be their class enemy? The working class, the class that works for them, the class that is less privileged, that is financially weak. They can form a revolution, they can resist state policies. So the ruling class will use its power to suppress their resistance, to hold their power, to make things in order. So for Marxists, a state is a political organization which is a privilege to the ruling class, which supports the ruling class, which supports the powerful people, that supports the financially strong people to suppress the poor class, those of the working class. The state arose as a result of division of society into antagonistic classes. So for Marxists, there are antagonistic classes. It could be one, it could be two, it could be more than like this. Huh? So there is a class struggle among the states. We know there are different strata, there are different classes of in every state, in every society. Some of them are rich, some of them are poor, and they here for Marxist state came into being as a result of division of society. That the society is of different stratas, of different classes, of different has a representation of different kind of people, and the state is basically for the ruling class that will use that will constitute all the power for themselves, and therefore for the purpose of curbing the exploited majority in the interest of the exploiting minority. So this state will serve the purpose. The sole purpose for the state is to curb the exploited majority in interest of exploiting minority. So minorities' interest will be exploited and majority will be having the most of the power, and their interest will prevail, and they'll be supported more by the state. It shall exist so long as there is the need for class dominance, and shall then wither away. Okay, the Marxists, there is a kind of a gloomy perspective for the Marxists when we see their concept of state, and that is the state is basically to like withhold or to withhold power or to support the privileged class, the ruling class. It is for the ruling class. It is for no good to the poor people, the financially weak people, or the dependent or working classes. It is all about the ruling class, and they will have everything that to guard their interest, not for the common masses. So they say that as long as there is a need to prevent to safeguard the interest of the ruling class, as long as there is a class dominance, as long as there is exploitation of common masses, the state will exist. And as soon as this exploitation kind of in an utopian world, then it will just diminish. The state, the institution of state will itself uh, end. So it is like not really. It does not. I think it will never happen. The division of classes will continue. So it is debatable when we study the Marxist perspective. So our next and very important thing we'll be studying is the elements of state. What makes a state? What a state is formed of. So in a more broadened terms for political science, there are physical basis of state and spiritual or political basis of state. So basically, there is two major divisions, and they are further divided into two, forming the four elements of a state. The physical base of a state is its population and territory. It represents how a state physically can be defined. Matlab, the population, the masses, the people living in that state is a physical entity, is something that exists in its physical form. And territory again is something that exists in its physical form. You can touch it, you can like see it, you can feel it. So the population and territory are the physical base of state, and the spiritual or political base of state is government and sovereignty. They are concepts. Government and sovereignty, you cannot touch them. You just don't see them like as a person there, or something that stands against you. You can see or touch or whatever it is. So the government is a concept that is an institution made up by people in different institutions that work together to form a government, and sovereignty is its power to have a control over its own territory and population. and to resist any opposition, any influence from the outside, any external influence. So what the population is? The population of a state consists of three kind of inhabitants. There are three kind of inhabitants or three kind of people in every state. Full members of state called it citizens. Like we are all nationals of a state of Pakistan, and we enjoy all the rights and perform the duties towards state, and we are granted with kind of citizenship. So, as you know, people go to Europe or Americas to have their citizenship. So, what the citizenship helps you? It helps you to enjoy some rights and have a proper place in that society. So, the full member of a state is called a citizen, but it has some duties to perform towards states too. It has to show its loyalty to the state. It has to be very obedient to the state laws and be a good citizen. And then you will be able to enjoy your rights that the state will bestow on you. The subjects are national of a state who enjoy some rights. Like they do not have all the rights and they do not have all the duties. It's kind of the states. I personally believe they are kind of the nationals having dual nationality or multiple identities or multiple nationalities. So they have different representations now, so they enjoy different kind of rights. Or there are some people in minority that they do not have all the rights accessible to them. So there is a chunk of population too, non-members, and they are aliens, they are outsiders, they are foreigners who are not part of your society. You can just come and visit you and whatever. Who are given only civil rights of life and property. So every foreigner has a right of civil right of life, that they must be treated with respect, and that of property, that their their rights as a human being exist. So the aliens on your land have some rights too. So you have to just they are a part of the population. They are, maybe they're kind of refugees on your territory, as we have Afghan refugees in Pakistan. So they have some rights being human beings. These were the three kind of inhabitants a state mostly has. The first two categories are real elements of population of the state: the full members and the nationals, or those subjects that do not have access to all rights. They constitute a population for a state. The third, the alien category of the population, does not count as the population of state. The permanent residents of a state, they are having some rights and they are having some duties, show the strength of, or are counted as the population of state. So what should be the size of a population in a state? There are different views, as we see that from the ancient time, the state existed. So there was a debate over how much population will indicate that these groups these groups qualify to be called a population for a considerable strength for a state. So Plato believes that if there are 5,040 people living in different communities or part of different groups that form a unity, or they work closely together and form a government, kind of a political setup for themselves, then they are regarded as a population for a state. Aristotle believes that there must be minimum of 10,000 and around maximum 1 lakh people living together, so they can just form a group. Or he gave another kind of journal definition, a journal rule for the population size. It should be large enough to be self-sufficient and small enough to be well governed. If they are not too small, that they cannot just handle themselves, they cannot handle their affairs, they cannot meet their daily needs, or they must not be so much of a big group that it is difficult to govern and to police them. So there must be a kind of reasonable population according to Aristotle. In modern times, the state consists of large populations. We know that these numbers, as defined earlier, as indicated earlier by Plato and Aristotle, seem so small for us to consider a state. And nowadays, we have millions and trillions of members or whatever. But the kind of we have large populations today. So there are small states in our world like Panama and Albania. They don't have like mass number of population, mass number of people living in their territories, but we have large states too. Like we know that China is the most populated country in the world. It has the largest population. So it is a country, it is a population, it is a state. So it qualifies to be a state on the terms of its population. And so is for India, that it is second largest. And there are many other states that have different proportions or their different ratio of populations. So there is no limit. Yeah, what should be the minimum? What is like maximum? But the point to remember here is the population should be sufficient to perform all the needs associated to their culture, arts, learning, industry, agriculture, defense, and civilized life. That the population must be like enough in the number that they can manage their cultural affairs. They must be having some sort of culture. They must be having kind of an art to represent themselves. They must be having some learning, some education. They could be having an industry or agriculture, which will be a source of their living and uh, contacting with the world. Defense to defend themselves from any external power, and they have a civilized life, organized life, kind of a government. So this is the qualification of modern population for a state. It should not exceed the natural and human resources of the country. That the number of people living on a territory in a country must be not be so. They should not be like such a big population that the natural or human resources of the country are like not enough for them. So when we say the population is bulging or the population is exceeding to the needs of the needs of population are exceeding uh, for the country, we know that if there's small resources, there are not enough of the resources for a country has, then it becomes difficult for it to for the state to manage and provide the basic necessities to everyone. So the population could must be in this is kind of an ideal thing, as we know that we have a big population here in Pakistan, and we are like though there isn't a scarcity, but in cases the population is large enough and they have small resources, there'll be scarcity, there'll be inflation, and there'll be difficulty in managing them, their economic affairs, their basic needs provide karna will be a very difficult thing for them. As we study that India has like like there are different indicators internationally to see the what kind of the life masses living in a state are having, what kind of life they have. There are different indicators. Infant morality, about it is about their education. So how many of them are getting education? How many of them have the basic? What is their like daily earnings and how much they spend? These are kind of indicators that indicate the level of development in a society, or the life standard of life of people living there. So the resources of a country must be sufficient to feed and manage the population of that country. It must not be like uh, excessive resources हो तो गुजारा हो सकता है, but if there is a limitation of resources, less resources हो तो वहाँ पे manage करना मुश्किल होता है. So another more important element is territory. So territory, as we know, a piece of land they must have. So the people must live on a definite portion of territory of an appropriate size. Unlike the nomad tribes, wandering tribes do not form a state. Like there are examples, there are different communities who just keep on switching, who just does not stay at a place. Now, if we just look into the ancient people, when the concept of state was not very well defined, there were tribes who they used to travel around. They for the business purposes, for they do not have a land, so they just used to migrate from one place to another according to the season or their needs or whatever, according to their security, wherever they feel secure. If we will migrate to another place, it could be safer. Or they did not have an established land. This is our land and we will live on here. So they were Norman tribes. Okay, so a wandering tribe is not a state. A state must be having its own population, that is its permanent residents, and they have the territory to which they will manage their people and have control of. When a people live together on particular territory, they develop community of interest and patriotism. Why is it important to have a permanent territory and a permanent population? Is because when we live together, we have a kind of affiliation to that land. We have a kind of association to that community, that they develop the community of interest and patriotism, that we then call ourselves as a nation. Kind of like nation and a state are again different concepts, but the mutual feeling or the feeling of common interest make is developed when they live together, which is necessary element for the statehood. That you must be united on some grounds, you must be having some mutual grounds to live together. So here the example is Muslims of pre-partition India were a nation, not a state. So what was the demand during the Pakistan movement, or the movement to get rid of the British Raj, was to have a state for Muslims of the subcontinent. What Qaeda-Azam demanded, or what Muhammad Ali Jinnah demanded, or Muslim League demanded, or what whosoever were the Muslim leaders before the establishment of Muslim League, they were demanding a state for the Muslims of India, because they knew that there is a majority population of Hindus. So after the British will move from there, and they will declare independence to subcontinent, Muslims must be having their own land. So they demanded a state for themselves. They knew they were a nation. The nation, the territory is a important element of a state. It is not important for a nation. The nation is a bigger concept like this now. So the nation has no boundaries, kind of no boundaries. There could be the nations confined within a boundaries, but it can be of like we how we define a nation is another thing. So the Muslims of pre-partition India was a nation. They were not a state, so they demanded a separate state for themselves, where they can live their life according to the principles of Islam and all this. We all know. There was another example here for the Israel. But I eliminated that because we do not recognize Israel as state. as a rightful state or as a legal state. That example was basically that the Jews of Americas and Europe were granted a land in the heart of Arab Muslim world in Palestine. So there they formed a state. They made, they there are when there is debate about the legality and the legitimacy of that state, but the world outside Pakistan mostly recognize them a state, but we do not recognize them as a state because they occupied the Palestinian land. It was not a rightful land for them. So I just eliminated that option from the examples because we do not recognize them. And when you study it from the international relations perspective, the state, there is another requirement for a state to be called a state, another element, and that is recognition. In international relations, unless unless a state is recognized by another state, they do not have formal relationships. Now, as we do not have formal relations, Pakistan do not have formal relationships with Israel, and this is kind of our policy stance towards Israel. If they occupied the land of Palestinians, it is an illegal occupation, so we do not recognize them as state. So they are a nation, but for us, they are not a state. So when people live together on a particular territory, they form a state, which is a necessary element of the statehood. The patriotism is a necessary element of the statehood. Political writers differ regarding the size of territory of the state. Like we have already discussed in the population, that there should be a considerable population. So there could be a considerable size or considerable territory to be called a state now. But there again, political writers are not agreeing on what the size of a state must be. So there are different interpretations. There are different countries in this world, as you all know. In a world we live today, there are smaller states like Luxembourg, and there are big continental states like that of Russia and Australia. So the the size of a state is not any hard rule to be that it will be that a state must have a certain amount of land for itself. But there are about other it is about other resources too. Okay, formally, they generally declared that territory must be small enough to be well administered, that a small state was proportionality stronger than larger ones. It was believed that if you are a small unit, you will be easier to administer, it will be easier to have control over your territory, to maintain everything, all your affairs and everything. In modern times, a tendency towards a larger state is observed because a small state do not possess enough natural resources within its boundaries for the economic and military needs of modern life and defense. It is important to have a defense in modern life. You must be having some economic power and a military power to defend yourself from the threat out from the outside world, and it is a modern need. It is a kind of when we discuss a state in modern terms as of today, the modern tendency is towards the economic self-sufficiency, which is possible in large size states because you have human resources, you have natural resources, you will be having so much to address your economic needs and all the necessary needs. Nonetheless, the population and territory should be correlated. There must be a correlation between your population and territory. State um, a state does not mean only land, soil, rivers, lakes, mountains. It's not about only the piece of land you are having, but also the subsoil and its natural resources, whatever resources that these physical entities are having. It extends to 3 miles into the sea or ocean. Or now there is kind of an international law perspective that you must be for having some international rights over the waters. You must be having 20 miles of the coast, and if you are a maritime state, like there are different categories of state when we discuss it from the international law perspective. There are different there are different conditions. Okay, you will be given these rights if you have this. So it is like this now. You must be having, there must be a kind of proportionality. There must be a kind of correlation that the population must not exceed that to have to live within that territory, and the territory must not be too big enough for a small population, because small population will be having control of a large territory. So there must be a correlation between all these things.